All right, gentlemen, that was probably the messiest crossroads possibly in Expedition Online history. I'd have to think about that for a minute, but yeah, we have votes going 4 different ways. We have a compass used incorrectly. We could debate that a little bit, but essentially, let's talk about the strategy session because names were popping up all over the place. Karl started off with what we thought, Team Kelly, but it really started to kind of move on there. I want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was like, the 8 saw that they had the numbers and they wanted to get rid of one of the 3. I think Mariana's name came up a little bit, but it was mostly between Philip and Bambi at first. And you know what? Bambi has strong allies because they managed to divert the attention away from her. I don't know if they see her as someone they actually can work with, or is it someone that they can manipulate moving down the line? So it'll be interesting to see why exactly is it that they saved her. That being said, Philip mounting a rebellion somewhat against David at first. At some point, it was against Haley when David caught wind of the plan. And unfortunately, it wasn't enough. At the end of the day, he wasn't able to convince enough players, and unfortunately tonight he's the one voted out after a very, very messy crossroads.
Yeah, I mean that was really interesting to see. I saw that as well. Karl was the first one to kind of cross enemy lines there, and Jack, not surprising to see, he's been making a lot of alliances all over the place. Yeah, what'd you think about Karl's move on David, and he doesn't end up voting for him?
Yeah, I was torn on it. I wasn't entirely sure what he was doing. I think it was relatively messy. The plan to take out David was a well thought out one. Like, Philip did a good job. He did a good job explaining why it was a good option. David's obviously a threat, as is Philip. So both sides of the both alliances had probable cause for who they were targeting. But David did make sense. And the fact that Karl seemed to be probably the biggest advocate outside of Philip, whose name was on the chopping block for it, it shocked me to know now that he did not vote for him. But I mean, it is a strange thing to have this happen. Like, this was a extremely messy crossroads, and that is not normally the case at a rendezvous. You take even the parent show that we are modeled after, it's normally a relatively unanimous vote because people are so scared of being that first boot that the snowball effect is very strong. And it just kind of piggybacks, and one person just catches a stray and they just are overwhelmingly destroyed. But there were so many different variables at play at this vote. David didn't have a vote. There were half compasses that were being talked about being used. Katie just decided to give her compass to David. There were so many different plans, different splits. I mean, it's part of the problem is that there's a huge overwhelming majority for one party, but that party is filled with a lot of erratic game players who want to make moves but maybe don't have the ability to convey the moves that they wanted to. So
yeah, the relationships that they need. Yeah.
Can I just say something? Because I don't want people to get it wrong. I think we like chaos. We like chaos. We like chaos when chaos is organized. This was not an organized chaos situation. No. This was not well thought out tonight. And I think, is it going to be entertaining to watch? Hell yes! But for the players, I don't know how they move forward in the game with what happened tonight. There's so many fractured relationships tonight, and as I see it, it's going to be interesting to see. Entertaining, yes.
Yeah.
Holding my breath till the end. But is it going to be? How do you build a game moving forward? That's a question we'll have to wait till tomorrow to find out.
Well, it looked to me like advantages were really getting into people's heads and were really kind of changing people's minds, especially in the later, I'd say the later quarter of the strategy session, where we had a clue room that dropped right in the middle. So a lot of players were noticing that, which was getting the compasses on the mind, that half compasses all over the place, steal a vote. Jack, do you really think the advantages is what kind of eventually turn this over onto Philip, who was really trying to get the info out there that he at least potentially could have advantages?
Yeah, I think advantages are always dangerous. not even like the physical tangible advantage, but the idea of advantages causes a lot of panic. And so especially when you have a clue room that just pops up out of nowhere, that's going to get people's minds thinking about the advantages. And immediately, at least my mind is going to go to who has an advantage, how do I counter, what's my plan B, C, D? And I think that's where the disconnect happened, because people's plan A didn't line up with someone's plan B or C or D, and it just kind of spiraled out of control. But I think one thing that was done really well was Joshua kind of spun what Philip said into this kind of like web of a very dangerous thing. Philip was trying to get the half compass from Joshua, but he was, he wanted something in return, and he was willing to give something up. And he conveyed the fact that he would give something in return for this half compass. But Joshua immediately took that as, you have 2 advantages. I'm going to go tell everyone that you have 2 advantages. And for me, if there's a lot of chaos, I'm writing down the name of the person that has 2 advantages, because that is the most terrifying thing. Like, I don't need to know. I don't need to know that. And I do think that there is a point to the chaos that KF talked about earlier. I would say, like, we enjoy chaos, but if I'm on the bottom, if I'm a Team Kelly member, I am loving this, because this is a ladder for me. These fractures, these confusing votes. I mean, there were 4 people on the voting block tonight. 2 people received 3 votes, and those 2 people are in the majority. That is like scary. So I am pushing these lies. I am pulling these cracks further apart and just trying to push myself further into the game.
These people cannot be thinking that it was only Team Kelly voting for them tonight. So they now know that some of their own did try to take a shot at them. So it's gonna be interesting to see. It's gonna be interesting to see a player like Mariana, who's played these games before, see how she exploits that. It's also gonna be interesting to see a player like Bambi, who's never played a game like this before, see how she can adapt to this and hopefully exploit that as well. And to the point that you made about Joshua, I think Joshua actually played a very good game in the strategy session. However, in the crossroad, I overplayed him a little bit. He was way too cocky. He exposed himself as someone who will backstab you, someone who is very strategic, and who has advantages. That was not needed. His name barely came up at all tonight, and now it better be on everyone's mouth.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of Josh's play in the crossroads there. I mean, he did a couple taboos. I mean, everyone lies to people in these games. You need to kind of lie. You need to mislead, especially when you're ready to vote someone out. What you don't need to do is tell every person in the game that you did it. You don't need to expose the fact that you have an advantage in your pocket as well that nobody else, or maybe a couple other people in the game knew about, but not everybody knew about that. And also, you don't want to show how cocky you are. And I think those were 3 things that, like you said, he had a great strategy session. He set himself up great. He had Philip. I don't think Philip was 100% thinking that was going to go down, but at least he had Philip confident enough that he'd bring it up there. And I think really dropped the ball and really kind of took away maybe an MVP on the episode, and maybe put a huge target on his back. Jack, Gary spoke on it a bit, but what do you think about the actual theatrics in Crossroads that we saw from Josh?
I'm in the same boat as you guys. I think it's definitely unnecessary, and if anything, it just hurts your game. Like, you can lie, you can manipulate people. That's part of the game. The people that claim that they're not going to do that are kind of lying in that moment,
right?
Ironic as it may be, but it's very tricky to. It's a hard line to toe when you're lying and manipulating, and you just never want to admit to it. And the manner in which he did it was very theatrical. He unmuted in front of everyone with this incredible exemption necklace around his neck.
Flashy, yeah.
I mean, maybe it went to his head a little bit, and he was feeling a little bit cocky. And to announce that to everyone that you have an advantage and that you lied, you were going to give that advantage to everyone, I would be very wary of working with you in the future.
Absolutely.
I was a little disappointed in that. And then touching on other theatrics of the Crossroads, on the way out, I do think Philip's idea was well-intentioned. He wanted to torpedo the game of Josh, but I do not think he did a particularly good job. I actually think that he kind of sunk the of a couple of the people that he wants to do well. He called out Karl and Katie, who
Mike, poor Mike,
he trusted, and then Mike caught a stray that he did not want. And I came out of that, and I'm thinking Karl, Katie, Mike, Josh, those are names that maybe I want to target. Maybe if I'm on the bottom, those are names that I'm going to be kind of whispering, planting seeds of doubt in people's mind about.
Yeah, I mean, if we see any of those players deserted in the next little bit, or all of them deserted, then we're definitely going to be looking back to Phil's exit here and have a few thoughts on that. Karl, you look like you're thinking about that.
Have they forgotten that the people they're voting out are the people voting for the winner? Like jury management, people. Jury management, come on.
Yeah, Josh just kicked the first jury member right out of Crossroads, and yeah, like you said, I mean, you got to be considering these things as we move forward. So we did end up with a 4-3-2-1 vote, and like you mentioned before, 6 votes on former Team Janet players, and only 4, unfortunately, all of them going to Philip, and he's the one who goes out here. But we haven't talked at all about the David and Katie situation as well. So right before Dykes, David kind of goes to Katie in front of the whole group and, I'll give it back to you. What were you guys' thoughts on that? It felt a little disingenuous to me. I really don't think he was going to give it back in that moment. I think he was always going to use that. Karl?
Acting skills are coming back to play. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. The actor.
He put her on the spot.
There's a reason why I like watching David play, because I think he does a very good job at manipulating people's emotions, and I think this is exactly what he did tonight. I don't think he was actually planning on giving it back, but at the same time, he's definitely letting people know, at least letting Katie know, I'm with you, I'll do what you want. So pulling on her heartstrings a little bit, because I know there's a little bit of friction in that relationship.
She voted
but then
for
also
him.
telling other people that, like, I'm true to Katie. I'm with Katie. I'm a honest player. So many honest people tonight, by the way.
Everyone's honest.
So, yeah.
Everyone was honest in the 4-3-2-1 vote.
Yes, because that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, and Katie catches 2 votes. Haley catches a vote. So what looked like a very strong trio in David, Haley, and Katie has really been exposed here. I heard a few of the other former Janet players talking about how strong that 3 is. Especially, I mean, if you as much of a wild card as Katie can be, if you have that wild card stuck to you and really trusting you, that can be really dangerous. But I think one thing that the former Team Janet did accomplish tonight is that 3 is fractured. Not so much David and Haley, but definitely Katie and David, which I think is also going to kind of reflect on Haley as well. Any thoughts on Katie as well? I mean, Katie ends up voting for David. She had a very emotional night. It seemed like KF, like she's finally starting to realize that giving up the compass really was not a great idea for her.
I think she spoke to Karl at some point tonight, and that was kind of like when, she put it all out there, and that's when it really came out that David was the one with holding the compass, which is again why I think David trying to let everyone know, like, it's her compass, I'll do what she wants, was a good move on his part.
It was,
but I think I think like there is some friction between Katie and David, and I don't know what Katie's gonna do moving forward. I feel like they're gonna try to repair that, but Katie's a very sensitive, maybe not the right word, but like if you cross her once, she does not forgive. She's still talking about Bridget. So, and so I don't know if moving forward, if she'll be able to trust David, if she's going to want to trust David.
Yeah. Sorry, Jack. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think David was able to kind of soften the tension there? And do you think Katie will forgive him, move forward with that group?
I'm torn on this because I understand the idea of trying to change people's perception of you by like pandering to Katie's needs and being like, oh, I'll do whatever you want, like blah, blah, blah. Like, I get that. I actually might push back on what you guys have been saying, and I think it's not particularly good move. One, because he didn't end up needing it. So I would have done that pandering and then been like, hindsight's always 20/20, but knowing that I'm not getting all the votes, I'm doing that pandering, and then I'm going to be like, I sense some uncertainty from you. I'm not going to play your compass. Docs, I would like to give Katie her compass back. That pushes the target onto her, minimizes my threat level because I don't have an advantage anymore, and I look like a really good ally. And I'm putting my neck on the line for our group. And Philip goes home. Everybody's happy. David gets home scot-free. But now he's just had a pretty big play, minimizing, like knocking off 3 votes that you got. That's still a good move, despite the fact that it didn't really have an effect on the vote.
Well, and his own alliance were a couple of the votes. Like, I mean, sorry to jump in, but
yeah, no, I agree. But and it's tricky because you know, I'm always torn on like how the jury should perceive someone giving you an advantage, because for one, that's tangible evidence of your social ability in this game. But secondly, you using it's a little bit of a breach of a trust. I think it can kind of cross that line of manipulation to like just blatantly taking advantage of someone's advantage, which is a lot of advantages. But I'm torn on it. I think the better move might have been to just give Katie her compass back, but I understand the hesitance. It was a very messy night strategically, and he did end up catching 3 votes. So
he played it on himself. So I think he didn't think he played it on himself. So I think he thought he was in trouble, right? But I do agree with you. It would have been nice. I think it would have been a really interesting move if he had committed all the way to the cinematic, the theatrical performance he was giving us. So I think that's a very interesting point. Yeah, but I do think he thought he was at risk because he ended up playing it on himself. And like, no one hates a wrong compass play, and no one in the jury likes a wrong compass play. It does not look good when you've played the compass at the wrong time, right? So,
and my perception always when someone does something like that is whether or not it's genuine. To me, asking you if I should play your advantage, the second you play it, it wasn't genuine. Like, exactly, you did it. So you can like try to soften the blow as much as you want, but you ended up playing it. So like, I view that as just a facade, and I would hope that some of the other players can see through that. And if I'm going to point to the minority, I'm pointing to that as like a blatant smoke and mirrors. Like, David's playing this game hard. He was able to get someone else's compass and then use it to nullify 3 votes. That's a play in itself. But not only did he do that, he created this incredible theatrics that kind of minimized the blow and made him seem like the good guy all along.
Don't say that too loud, Jack. Don't say that too loud. He's one of my picks in the game. I don't want the players to hear that. Okay, I don't want them to hear that.
No, but
trust me, we're far enough away from base camp.
Yeah, it's true though. Like, if you're gonna go out of your way to ask Katie how she feels about it, and I mean, anyone who's watching her respond to that could see that she was not comfortable with him using it, did not want him to use it. As much as she did not say that, you could tell, a reasonable person. And David, he's obviously good at that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of the players saw, like you said, that strategic ability of David and that the way that he's able to kind of manipulate, and he's a very good talker. I mean, if you were to just come in on that crossroads and just hear that specific part, you might be like, oh man, David's a really nice guy. He was going to give it back. But we know better because we've been watching him now for 8 days, and we know that he's got some strategic wit to him. And like I said, I don't think he was ever going to give it back. I thought maybe almost like the Josh thing, and maybe the Josh thing makes it seem a little bit less kind of in your face, because because that, like I said, the Josh thing for me was a bit much. But a fun time with Docs at Crossroads for sure. It's going to be definitely difficult to top that Crossroads going forward, but I think we're ready to put a bow on this one, guys.
This is the first one post-merge.
First rendezvous. This could be
game.
crazy. This is supposed to be the easy one. It's supposed to be the easy one, but this is not going to be as easy as Team Kelly going out. Even though it was a Team Kelly player, I think that is dead in the water. I think tomorrow we are going to get brand new relationships. We're going to get players who are going to be looking at the game much differently. So I am very excited to see where things go from here. You got David and Haley who need to find a home. You got Josh who's going to need to recover from all this. Now, and
if he realizes that he's in trouble, because the cockiness I saw tonight, he may not be as self-aware as I thought he was.
That's a good point. You got Mariana and Bambi who are sitting on the bottom of Team Kelly, but are both migrating very well. And we didn't even mention in the clue room, Mariana's the one who pulled out with the compass. So she figured out the clue. She found it on Wentworth's Instagram. Maybe it's still there. Go look for it. Wentworth playing in the snow, I think, was the second clue. So go see if you can find that Instagram. Like all of her photos as well, just for fun. Blow up her phone a little bit. And yeah, it's going to be a crazy day tomorrow. There are half compasses all over the place. I mean, we'll break it down at the beginning of next episode because I don't have it off the top of my head. I know that there's only one compass in play. One was played today, so who knows what plans Shane has for that. So we'll have to see. I'm excited, guys. Any closing words in this episode? It was a crazy one. Yeah. Awesome. On to day 9 we go. For Jack and KF, I was Jonathan Dykes. This was Expedition Online Glacier Bay. We will see you all for day 9 next time. Peace.